Hello, and thanks for joining me. I'm thrilled that last night I was able to attend a Virginia opera performance of Samson and Delilah, the opera by Camille Saint-Saëns. This opera is in French, and so many times you'll see the title in its French title, Samson et Dalila, but as you can tell since I just flubbed it, I'm not a very fluent French speaker, so I'm going to stick with the English pronunciation of Samson and Delilah. So yes, Camille Saint-Saëns wrote this opera in the 1870s. It had its premiere in 1877 in Germany. So this opera, even though it's French, it had its premiere in Germany. I think it has a kind of interesting, I guess, production history. It could not get a production in France. Camille Saint-Saëns couldn't get a production, so Franz Liszt, the composer Franz Liszt, from what I read, championed the opera and got a production in Germany in 1877. So it had, even though it's a French language opera, it had its premiere in Germany. So it's based on the biblical story of Samson and Delilah. I wouldn't say it's literal, but it's definitely, definitely inspired by that story. Let me show you the cast real quick. Here's the cast. I'm not going to read the whole cast, but there you can see the main cast there. So the conductor was Adam Turner, the director and choreographer Paul Curran, our Samson was Derek Taylor, and our Delilah was Catherine Goldner. And then on the back we do have a big chorus for this opera, as well as a bunch of dancers. Here was the chorus, and the dancers here. This Mary Richardson, listed as aerialist. She did a great job in the Baccanale. In Act 3, there's a Philistine in Baccanale, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So what this opera is about, like I said, it's based on Samson and Delilah, the biblical story. I didn't show my ticket. There's my ticket. It's based on the biblical story, and in Act 1, it starts out with a bang, really, with this Hebrew chorus singing, to God, asking the divine, why have they been forsaken? Because they're being oppressed by the Philistines. And, they're outside the temple of Dagon, the god of the Philistines. The governor of the Philistines comes out, Abimelech, and he starts really taunting the crowd. And, it's like, well, sorry, but you've been forsaken by your God and we're in power now. Well, Samson's there, and he's trying to encourage the crowd to not be disheartened and not lose hope, but that they are going to ultimately be victorious, and the crowd sort of starts to get into it. Well, Samson ends up getting into a tussle with Abimelech, the governor, and kills him. Well, the Hebrews sort of freak out because they scatter because they don't know what's going to happen after this. Meanwhile, Delilah comes out and sort of sings this song about spring, and so kind of catches Samson's eye. This old Hebrew man, warns Samson, watch out for this girl because she is going to be trouble. Does Samson listen to the old Hebrew man? No, he does not. So, when we get in Act 2, the high priest of Dagon, the Philistine god, comes to Delilah, and she's kind of in her room getting all prettied up because she's expecting Samson. Because he's been visiting her, and the high priest comes and tells Delilah, you know what, the Hebrews are kind of running amok. They've destroyed the crops, so they're kind of winning, or sort of at this moment, tides seem to be turning in their favor. And so he's like, I'll give you a bunch of gold if you'll seduce Samson and and discover the secret of his power. And she's like, not to worry, because he's going to be back later, I'm pretty sure, because, I think I kind of got him. Well, he does show up. She sings this beautiful aria, which I'll talk about more later. Samson eventually, she snags him, right? Then she's like, Bob, what's the secret of your power? Well, he tells her, my hair. Well, she quickly snips off his hair, calls in the Philistines. They come in and blind him. Yeah. So then Act 3 opens. Samson is defeated. He's humiliated. He's blinded. His head's been shorn. He's working in a mill, like pushing the stone around. He's like, crying out, he realizes what he's done. The Hebrew chorus is in the background. He can hear him through this window singing, what did you do? Why did you betray us? And he's just like, yeah. Well, meanwhile, the Philistines are celebrating their victory over the Hebrews, their new victory over the Hebrews, and their humiliation of Samson. They're preparing to have a sacrifice to their God, and they proceed to have a Baccanale. Wow. So, yeah, this Baccanale, I mentioned Mary Richardson, the aerialist, the dancer, earlier. What they do in the production I saw, so there's this music of the Baccanale starts off kind of sensuous and slow, but as it goes on, it just gets more frenzied. Well, Mary Richardson, the aerialist in the production I saw, they have this metal ring that's suspended sort of like a trapeze. She's wearing the tiniest bikini, and she jumps up in this ring, and the ring is slowly revolving, and she does kind of a cross between a Cirque du Soleil and a burlesque, sort of very, sensual performance in this spinning ring. And meanwhile, the Philistines are just all going at it, and the music just gets more frenzied, more frenzied, more frenzied. Well, so then they decide to bring in the high priest, calls out to bring in Samson, and Delilah want to bring in Samson because they want to revel in and gloat over his humiliation and take pleasure in his humiliation. So he comes being brought in, led by this little small boy, and they just, they taunt him. And Delilah, actually, that beautiful aria she sang in Act 2 to sort of seduce him, that seems so genuine, when we heard it back in Act 2. She sings it in this mocking tone in Act 3, and it was just so, had such an impact, because Samson's humiliation and defeat are just so complete. Well, he's calling out, to just to the divine to give him a little bit of strength. They lead him up to these two pillars, and he's, pleading with the divine, just let him have enough strength for this one last thing. And, he's chained to these pillars, and as the crowd's just sort of in this frenzy, he pulls the pillars down and pulls the temple down on all of them. So, thoughts about that. There was just a lot to mine from this opera, a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts to mine from this opera. I thought one was, the dangers of losing yourself in lust. This is something that the dangers of lust, or losing your reason in lust, is something that Samson learned. And then also the dangers of love, not always being what it seems. So it may seem like the right thing. This person may seem like the right person for you, but there could be a lot of danger in there that could impact you later on, as well as all of those around you. Very destructive forces that could really be at work under the guise of love. And then the other sort of thing that I thought about was the changing fortunes. Because when the opera first starts, the Hebrews are oppressed and the Philistines are triumphal, and then in Act 2 the Hebrews are sort of being victorious, and then it's the Philistines' turn to sort of plead with the divine to help them, and then by the time we get into Act 3, the fortunes are changed again with Samson bringing the whole temple down on all of them, and sort of the fortunes of the Hebrews appear to be changing at that point. And then the other thing, as far as being another idea that I thought about was like being aware of who you mock today, who you feel like is a humiliated, powerless person or people today may come back later to really seek revenge or destroy you. So who is the oppressed now, who is the downtrodden, who is the defeated today may ultimately later on yet defeat you. So yeah, about the music, before I run out of time, I'm going to put some links down in the details below. I'm going to put a Spotify link to an album that I really enjoy listening to that really has a really good rendition of that Hebrew chorus that the opera starts with. So if you just listen to that very first part of the opera, the very first opening of the opera, you will see that you're going to be in for some great music. That performance was from 1991. Placido Domingo is Samson, Valtrode, Meyer is Delilah, and the conductor is Byung Won Chung. I'm probably mispronouncing that. This was done by Opera Bastille. This was done by Opera Bastille. Back in 1991. So I'm going to put a link to that. Then in Act 2, this aria. So on Spotify there is a really good performance of this aria in Act 2 between Samson and Delilah, when Delilah is sort of seducing Samson. Our Samson in this that link that I'm going to provide is Placido Domingo again, but our Delilah here is Olga Borodina, and this was from 2002 in Milan. The conductor was Gary Bertini. And then finally, for the Baccanale in Act 3, I'm going to put two links. I'm going to put a concert performance that was the Berliner Philharmoniker, done in 2010. The conductor for that performance was Gustav Dudamel. One thing you got to think about with the Baccanale is that it starts off kind of slow and then it gets into this frenzy. This concert performance is only the last 2 minutes, so it's just really the frenzied part. But the full Baccanale is from a 1983, the Met Centennial production of 1983, and that's conducted by James Levine. This is the full Baccanale, but remember, it gets more. It starts kind of slow and sensual, but by the time we're at the end, this Baccanale, the dancers in this Baccanale that I'm going to link to down below are in a frenzy. The production I saw was not set in kind of ancient Hebrew. What we had, the Hebrews were sort of dressed and sort of looked like maybe Eastern European Jews of the 1930s, whereas the Philistines were maybe urban, sophisticated Hollywood types from the 1930s. So that's that production that I saw. So I'm going to close with that because I'm going to run out of time, I think. My next operas probably won't be until November. I have a double whammy on November 18th. I have tickets to the live and HD Met performances that are in local theaters all around the country. I'm going to see The Exterminating Angel, which is a new opera by Thomas Ades. I've been looking forward to that so much, so I already have a ticket for that. And then on that night, I'm seeing Alcina by Handel at the Washington National Opera here in Washington, D.C. The only other opera I may see before November 18th is The Magic Flute by Mozart, is the live in HD Met performances next Saturday, October 14th. If you are interested in that, you should look it up. I'll put a link to it below if you can see there's a theater near you. I may attend that, but I probably won't attend that. I have seen that production before, and it's a very good production with puppetry. At least I think it's this production with a lot of puppetry and very nice production of The Magic Flute. And so, yeah, that's what's coming up. So I'll close with that. Until next time, take care. Bye.